Good morning, everyone. This is Father Nate, a missionary priest in Italy, and thanks for joining us today, January 13th, on No Greater Delight, our podcast on Marian feasts and Marian meditations. Once again today, we have a great number of feasts, so we'll start off in Spain with Nuestra Señora de la Cabeza in Motril, Granada, Andalucía, in Spain. So Nuestra Señora de la Cabeza is literally Our Lady of the Head, right? So what are we celebrating here? Well, in the 1500s, soldiers found a 100-year-old statue of the Virgin and Child in Corinth, Greece. And so what they did is they took it with them out to sea. A storm brought them to port near Motril in southern Spain. Every time they tried to leave, a new storm came up. So deciding that this meant that the Virgin didn't want to leave the place, they built her a chapel on the land, right? On the headland, I guess that's the piece that comes out. So in the 1600s, a Baroque church was built for Our Lady of the Head. In the 1800s, when earthquakes nearly destroyed Motril, the people vowed to honor her with an annual procession if she would save them. This vow is fulfilled every January 13th. During the Spanish Civil War, the sanctuary was unfortunately destroyed, but it's since been rebuilt. The statue's gold hair and mantle and white robe with golden patterns are usually hidden under richly embroidered vestments. And interestingly enough, elephant tusks are mounted in silver, and they form a crescent moon at her feet. This image was canonically crowned in 2003. Then we jump up to Belgium in Notre Dame, Namur, in Namur, Wallonia, Belgium. The church there was consecrated in 1753 on this day, January 13th. Next, we have a very interesting devotion. It's Panna Maria Pomichne Kristanu Jelzhikov Yashin Isti nad Lavem in the Czech Republic, in Filipov village. That all is to say, Virgin Mary, Help of Christians. We celebrate an apparition and a healing in 1866. So what happened? Well, Maddalena Cade, who was an orphan, right, and she had been bedridden since the age of 12 because she had many, many illnesses, was actually cured by the Blessed Virgin Mary following an apparition. Actually, the local bishop has recognized the healing and the supernatural character of the apparition. So it's approved at least by the local bishop. Right, so Philipsdorf, which is the Filipov village, if you will, is a village. It was in Bohemia, but I think now it is actually the Czech Republic. Right. So what happened? Maddalena Cade, she was 31. She was born in that little village, and as an orphan, she lived with her brother Giuseppe, who was 34. With his wife, Cecilia, and their 5 kids, right? So it was January 13th of 1866 that Mary appeared to Maddalena Cade. She had been a sower, but for 12 years, she had been very, very sick, right? So much so that they really thought that she was at the end of her life and she had already received the last rites. She was a timid woman, but very devout to Our Lady, but also not stupid. She was very practical, right? So she was almost they said nailed to her bed for over a month with wounds all over her body, like it was leprosy. Ugh. January 13th, 1866, at 2 at night, Maddalena was in bed and she couldn't even speak because of how weak she was. A dear friend of hers, Veronica Kindermann, was there keeping an eye on her. So the sick woman was sitting there just, contemplating an image of our sorrowful mother, which was on the wall in front of the bed. At 4 o'clock, Maddalena suddenly saw a brilliant light, which enlightened the room. And at the center of this light, there was always something even brighter, and she saw a woman there. She woke up her friend, it says, when a gomitata, she hit her with her elbow, and said, "Hey, look at that beauty, look at that beauty." Interestingly enough, Veronica didn't see anything. She only saw the light of the lamp, right? Maddalena was the only one privileged to see Our Lady, right? And so she told her friend, hey, get on your knees because the Blessed Virgin is there. She couldn't stand the light, right? So she actually covered her face with her hands and cried. After a little bit, her friend uncovered her. Magdalene could now see without any difficulty. Right? They recited the first 2 verses of the Magnificat, and then Our Lady moved her lips and silently told her, "My daughter, from now on, you are healed." Right? And sure enough, she was healed. Likewise, we're going to jump down to Peru, Vírgenes de la Providencia in Otusco, in La Libertad, Peru. On this day in 1867, images were found in the broken rock. In 1571, on this day, the Little Office of the Blessed Virgin was revised by Pope Pius V. There's a celebration of Our Wounded Lady in Cambrai, France. Couldn't find more information about that. It was in 1547 that the Council of Trent declared that Mary is free from sin. And last, but certainly not least, on this jam-packed day, it's the celebration of Our Lady of Victory in Prague. And this took place in 1620. The church was named in honor of the Austrian Emperor Ferdinand II's victory over a Protestant army near Prague. If you recall, that church, Our Lady of Victory, is famous for holding the Holy Infant of Prague statue. That's where it's held. And that's what we're celebrating today, January 13th. For today's Marian meditation, we continue with the meditations on the Annunciation. In fact, we have the last one today. This is meditation 28, and it's entitled Her Feast. So we consider just a couple different aspects, 4 aspects, in fact, of the Annunciation. Again, we're following the book Marian Meditations by Father Ildefonso Villar. This incomparable mystery in the life of Our Lady was accomplished through the embassy of an angel. It will, then, be convenient to compare this embassy with the messages which God so often sends our souls. And the first point is the embassy. God sent the angel in a visible way to announce to our Heavenly Mother her promotion to the dignity of Mother of God. It appears that the angel took on a human shape, most befitting the lofty scope of his embassy, that of a beautiful youth surrounded by heavenly splendor, for he had to deal with the most sublime business ever undertaken between heaven and earth, between God and man. Thus does God often attempt to deal with us about some business appertaining to his glory and to the welfare of our souls. And thus he does so through his angels, although in an invisible shape. How often is our guardian angel, in the name of God, trying to draw our attention to some inspiration, and yet we do not pay any heed? If we could see him visibly, we would not behave in this manner. But why do we not see with the eyes of faith? We should also see God through the eyes of faith in those who speak to us in his name, namely the superiors, the spiritual directors, the preachers, good readings, good examples, and even humiliations and trials. What are all these but embassies sent to us by God? Compared with the way Our Lady received the angel, how do we receive them? For today's reading from The Admirable Heart of Mary by St. John Eudes, we continue chapter 5 entitled Mary's Heart, the Fiery Furnace of Babylon, wherein the saint compares numerous things in the Old Testament to Mary's heart, but in this particular chapter, the fiery furnace into which Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown by King Nebuchadnezzar. Let's hear what he has to say. A passionate lover delights to write the name of his beloved and sketch her image wherever he happens to be, not only on paper or canvas, but also on trees, stones, and whatever else comes under his hand. Similarly, the incomprehensible love of God, Father and spouse of the most perfect and lovable Virgin Mary, causes him to take pleasure in picturing her heart even in the burning furnace of Babylon. Certainly that furnace was the product of Nebuchadnezzar's impious rage, but divine providence, without whose order and permission nothing can happen, designated it to show the extent of the power of God and the marvels of his goodness, through the miraculous protection given to his faithful friends. God also willed that the fiery furnace should give us a glorious picture of the ardent heart of the Queen of Heaven, which is indeed a furnace of love and charity. In the furnace of Babylon, we behold many marvels wrought by God's omnipotence. Consider that in the midst of the furnace, filled with fire and flame, there should be a refreshing wind, likened to a fragrant dew. The angel made the midst of the furnace like the blowing of a wind, bringing dew. That's from the book of Daniel, chapter 3, verse 50. What a marvel it is to behold a burning furnace whose flames protect those inside its crucible, while they destroy those who remain outside. What a miracle to see fire comforting and refreshing those cast into the sevenfold heat of its flames, while burning to death those standing at a safe distance. How miraculous for those 3 young men to survive in a furnace whose flames leapt to a height of 49 cubits, not suffering any injury, but walking about with joy as in a place of delight. The three gladly sang the praises of Almighty God, and emerged from their ordeal with greater strength and vigor than before, while the fire could not so much as singe a single fiber of their clothing. Great indeed are the marvels to be found in Babylon's furnace, yet they merely foreshadow the miracles which we find in the furnace of the glowing heart of the Queen of Angels.
Hello, and we hope that you enjoyed listening to our Marian podcast. In the spirit of Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, we say to you that there is no greater delight than to spread the devotion of Our Lady. We hope you share these sentiments and encourage you greatly to share with a loved one. Know that you are always in our prayers, and we ask that you keep us in yours. God bless.